Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Young Women in Bio's virtual presentations. We're very excited to announce the availability of these online resources through our brand new Young Women in Bio online platform, which provides young women across the United States and in Canada free access to our educational and leadership programs and other opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math. Young Women in Bio is launching this new initiative for young women who are curious about STEM and want to learn more, but may not live near one of our 13 Women in Bio chapters in cities across the United States and in Montreal. Young Women in Bio gives girls today the inspiration and support they need to become tomorrow's leaders in science, technology, engineering, and math. We strive to provide education and hands-on experiences in STEM, as well as share our passions for all scientific fields. The launch of Young Women in Bio online comes at a time when there's real need to provide young girls who cannot otherwise attend our events and programs with access to online programming in STEM. This will help with our goal to ignite curiosity and inspire young women to see a future in STEM. We believe that by making these online resources available to a broader audience of girls, we can encourage more young women to find a lifelong passion and career in STEM. Young Women in Bio is part of Women in Bio, with chapters nationwide and in Canada. Women in Bio is a nonprofit volunteer organization that promotes diversity, inclusion for women in life science and beyond. Women in Bio partners with leading companies, universities, hospitals, and other organizations to host highly engaging educational and motivational programs for young women interested in STEM. In fact, in 1 year, we've had more than 70 events across North America, reaching more than 4,500 young women, and have had the support of over 250 volunteers. With our Young Women in Bio online program, we will be able to reach even more young women. Today, Young Women in Bio is hosting a career panel discussion for middle and high school students to gain insights into STEM careers. Our panelists will discuss the career journey into STEM, followed by a question and answer moderated by a Young Women in Bio-Capital Region Ambassador. I'd like to start by introducing our ambassador, Sophie. Sophie is a senior at Duval High School in the Aerospace Engineering and Aviation Technology program. She is very passionate about STEM and wants more girls in STEM. In the fall, she'll be attending Columbia University to major in biomedical engineering and pursue a concentration in African American studies. In the future, she hopes to become a biomedical engineer and help build wheelchairs and prosthetic legs for the homeless and veterans. Her goal in life is to fill the gap of African American women in STEM fields. Outside of school, she spends a lot of time tutoring children, assisting them with math and English. On behalf of Young Women in Bio, it's our pleasure to work with Sophie as a Young Women Ambassador. Thanks to her for putting this event together and our esteemed speakers on the panel. Sophie, over to you.
Okay, so I'm excited to moderate this event and would like to introduce our 3 speakers. So the first speaker that's on the list is Dr. Ganelle Moultry-Leach. She's an industrial and system engineer, STEM educator specialist, and consultant. She is the founder, owner, and creator of STEM Empowers Future, an educational service business. She received her master's degree from North Carolina A&T State University and PhD from Virginia Tech in the field of industrial and system engineering. She has worked as a STEM employee advocate in many different venues, ranging from private and industry, in industrial and system engineers and production supervisor, academia, college professor, and administrator, and secondary education, technology education educator. Her varied work experience prepared her for reinventing herself for the system of her life as a business creator and owner. Her passion and purpose are to increase the number of underrepresented minorities and women in STEM education and career paths. She's also a member of the National Coalition of the 100 Black Women, Prince George County, Maryland. She has served as the first vice president and co-chair of the Education Program Committee, and now the chair of the Education Program Committee. She is also a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority and also Antioch Baptist Church of Clinton, and she's married with 2 adult children. Our second speaker is Dr. Valerie Virta. Grew up in Austin, Texas, and cultivated her interest in science and math from an early age. She attended STEM Magna Junior High and high schools before on to get 2 degrees in mathematics and molecular biology from the University of Texas at Austin, where she also volunteered in several different labs. Her brief volunteer experience and subsequent jobs in lab at the University of Texas helped her realize that she wanted to take an integrative and interdisciplinary approach when she went to the University of Washington to study for a PhD in biology. There, she researched the evolution and development of body strengthening in fish using the zebrafish as her lab model. From Seattle, she moved to the DC area to pursue postdoctoral research in zebrafish, the development at the National Institute of Health. Seeking to make a greater long-term impact for STEM in society, she left the branch to pursue a career in science and health government administration. She recently completed a AAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship and now works in the Small Business Education and Entrepreneurial Development Office at the National Institute of Health. Our third panelist is a junior at the University of Virginia on the pre-med track. She has taken a lot of science courses, and even though it was challenging, she learned so much about herself and the world around her. She's an outreach committee officer for the University Undergrad Research Network. She works with other students to plan and organize the symposium, talks, and student travel grants. Pre-COVID, she worked in the research lab on nuclear hormone receptors and how they regulate transcriptions, and that is Jules. And so the first question, and I would like to thank them for all being here. And the first question that I would like to ask all 3 of you guys is, please describe your journey into the STEM field.
Well, I'll go first. Thank you all for inviting me to be a part of this STEM career panel discussion. My journey into becoming an industrial and systems engineer was not a traditional one. I don't want to date myself. However, when I was a student in middle and high school, no one was encouraging girls to become engineers. Therefore, I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill with the dreams of becoming a lawyer, and I majored in political science. When I began taking classes in my major during my junior year of college, I realized I did not like political science, and it wasn't for me. Also, I did not want to change my major and have to stay in college longer. Therefore, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in political science, knowing I would never pursue a career in law. Now I had to think about what I wanted to do as a career. My sister, who was 3 years younger than me, was attending NC State University at the time and was majoring in industrial and systems engineering. What was interesting, she discovered engineering through a summer program she attended at NC State before her junior year in high school. During the summer program, she was introduced to industrial engineering discipline, and she later decided to major in industrial engineering at NC State. Before I continue, I want to tell you what I do as an industrial engineer. I help businesses create or improve the actions they take by maximizing productivity and minimizing waste and making products or providing services that satisfy their customers. Now, back to answer my question. When my sister was home from college on the weekends, I would scan through her industrial engineering books. Strangely, just from studying her books, I knew industrial engineering was the one for me. I was blessed that North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina, which was not far from where I lived, had an industrial and systems engineering program. So I applied and got accepted in their undergraduate program. Fortunate for me, I took a class with the industrial engineering department chair. He knew I already had an undergraduate degree, so he said it was for me to get another undergraduate degree. So he had me to enroll in a master's program in industrial and systems engineering. All I had to do was take all the undergraduate prerequisite courses for industrial engineering, and upon graduate completion, began taking the courses in the master's degree program in industrial and systems engineering, and the rest is history. Thank you.
Should I go next? Okay. Unlike Ganelle, I showed an interest in science pretty early in my childhood. There was a popular show on PBS where a man would dress in a leotard that had the different muscle systems and like circulatory systems and such on it. It was this old science show. And so I had entered the science fair as in kindergarten. And I basically drew a poster of this guy in his outfit because, there would be a heart in the circulatory system and he, had a little, he made a little heart on his chest. And so I drew that. And so that I've been interested in science and math from a very early age. And when I went to Healing Magnet Junior High in Austin, my teachers there were very encouraging to ask me to participate in math competitions and things like that. And I'd never been especially singled out as being good at math, so I was very surprised, but I thought, why not try it? And I thought it was very fun and interesting. And so I did similar things in high school. Also, when I was in high school, the math department at the University of Texas would have a Saturday morning math group for junior high and high school students. And some Saturdays, my mom would take me and drop me off on the math group, and we would hear about interesting things like different areas of math based on shapes or numbers and number theory. And we would get fun stickers. And I always thought that was great. So that's kind of what started me along. I also, I was involved in different clubs in high school. There was an environmental club and there was a science club, and we would organize camping trips and go spend time in nature and help with beach cleanups and things like that. And then finally this summer after high school, I started volunteering in a lab where I went just before I started university. And so the experience of helping in this lab really hooked me in. And even though it wasn't the area of science that I wound up pursuing for my more advanced education, it really sparked a love of doing research and doing lab work and working at the bench. So that's how I got into STEM.
I guess I've always been interested in the STEM field younger age, but that interest kind of changed over time. So I was into medicine at first, and then it was law, and then it was finance, and then I even wanted to be a sister at some point. But at the end of the day, it did change back to STEM. And well, while I moved here, when I was a sophomore in high school, some of the teachers that were the most influential, and that did contribute to me wanting to pursue the STEM field, were my math and science teachers. And so it was mostly my science and math teachers. And that basically did reinforce my love for STEM, because I just felt like moving from one completely different country to another, and having someone like support you, not just in school, but also emotionally, when when I got here was really big for me. And then, after that, after finishing high school and then coming to college, I took a lot of science classes because I'm a pre-med, and I also joined a lot of clubs, mostly, well, some of them were related to the STEM field or pre-med related. And so I did find a passion in that. And yeah, so since then I haven't really, I do really enjoy just doing things related to STEM per se.
Thank you so much for all the great answers. And the second question, I think that it's like a continuation of the first question, is like, why did you choose why you chose your specific field of expertise? Because I know some are engineers, some are in medicine, some work at the National Institute of Health. So like, why did you choose that specifically?
Okay, I'll go. All my life, I was always consumed with trying to improve the way things were done. So industrial engineering was a natural choice for me because it introduced me to the tools to use to improve the way things are done. This is important to me because many things can be done more efficiently. However, most people accept the way things are done without ever thinking there is a better or more efficient way to do them. As an industrial and systems engineer, I've been able to utilize my knowledge and expertise in everything I do, as well as assisting others with being more efficient. I have been able to take my knowledge and expertise and implement it in other organizations that I participate in, thereby helping them provide services that keep their customers satisfied.
Did you want to go next, Jules?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the reasons why I chose to be pre-med or to be a doctor is just because I just love the fact that it makes me appreciate like every single thing, not just in my life, but in the world in general. After pre-med, and I've taken a lot of science classes. Some of them were mostly like biology. And the more I take those classes, the more I learn about my surrounding, the natural world, and just how fascinating everything is. And so it's for me, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's kind of mind-blowing how all these little things come together to make something bigger. And so I think that's why I want to be a doctor. I just really appreciate the lessons I've learned, not just in the classroom, but how it connects to the bigger world, the bigger world in general.
So in terms of how I chose my specialty, it was a long and winding journey. At the end of high school, I was trying to decide if I wanted to be a genetic engineer or a writer. And I thought, well, if I choose to be a writer, I can always do that later in life. But it would be hard to go back and start over to become a scientist. So I will try becoming a genetic engineer. And almost immediately I got distracted. And I wound up having, I thought that it would be good to get experience working in a lab, and a friend of my mom's had asked her if I might be interested in helping her in her lab work. And so this started the summer after high school. And I went from, I wound up working in a lot of different labs for different reasons. I had hoped to stay in the same place throughout undergraduate, but that's just not the way that life worked. So I wound up bouncing around in different specialties, and I got to know a lot of graduate students and postdoctoral researchers. And one of the things that I learned was that sometimes the field that you choose to study can have a lot of, it depends on a lot of outside things that you can't control. And so I thought, well, I'd like to pick something that it seems like I can finish and get my PhD in a reasonable amount of time. And then I decided to leverage my interest in lots of different areas and use it as a strength. And I discovered the area of evolutionary developmental biology. And I was hooked. And there were so many interesting scientific questions and organisms that people were studying. And I wound up becoming very interested in cell biology and the movement of cells as an organism develops. And so that's how I chose my specialty for graduate school. And then when I did my postdoctoral research, I was working on how fish faces develop, because Cleft palates and other craniofacial defects are some of the most common birth defects. And it would help the community to understand how a face normally develops. And in that role, I wound up inserting genes into zebrafish lines so that parts of their faces would glow with fluorescent proteins, and I could capture those on the microscope. So I did finish my scientific career becoming a genetic engineer. And along the way, I learned that as a scientist, I have to learn to communicate well. And in fact, I write nearly every day as part of my job. And so an integral part of being a scientist is learning to communicate. So in the end, I wound up becoming both.
Thank you so much. So I know one of the many reasons why you guys were chosen to participate in the panel is because you guys are all women. So I think that leads me to my third question is, what is the importance of like having young women engage in STEM? Because I know many of young girls will be listening to this recording after.
Well, I'll volunteer and go. I think it's important for young women to engage in STEM because it improves their creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, and analytical skills. All these skills are necessary for becoming successful in life. Also, participating in STEM would lead to better career opportunities for women, therefore higher paying jobs. This is important since with technological advancement, most lower level jobs will be done by machines. This will eliminate a lot of jobs that women have done traditionally. Having STEM skills will give women advantages in the work market, in the job market, they have not traditionally had.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that STEM is also really empowering, and and more women being involved in STEM fields. It's a great thing, especially in a society where women are constantly put down or minimized. So it's important. So it kind of gives women the power that they need or that they deserve too. And I also think STEM is also really important if I have to go on the race aspect, especially for Black women also, just because as we know, the wall gap between Black and white is extremely wide, and being and having Black women be able to engage more in STEM fields can open the door for more I guess like higher paying jobs, and also the skills needed to get those higher paying jobs, which is one step closer to be able to close that wall gap. So I think it's definitely empowering, and it does help in that aspect as well.
Well, so I think it's very important for young women to be involved in STEM. And one of my heroes, Shirley Chisholm, has a quote about politics and women being involved in politics. And to paraphrase her, women are more than half the population, so women belong in math and science. Our perspective, experience, and skills are very important. And an example of this that I'd like to share is seatbelt design. So seatbelts were designed for men, and when researchers looked at the data of injuries in car accidents and how women are affected versus men, it turns out that the seatbelts weren't hitting women in the right place because they never did the tests on dummies that approximate women. So this is just one of very many examples of how important it is for women to be involved in STEM careers.
Okay, so thank you so much, and yeah, thank you so much for the answers. It's amazing. And the next question, it kind of now relate to the future. So these two questions are: how has STEM changed in the past 5 years, and what do you expect will happen in the next 5 to 10 years? So since like most of them are like in middle and high school, so this would be like a great response to like just learn something new.
Okay, well, I'll go. We live in a world where information is obsolete or out of date within 18 to 24 months. Therefore, most of the STEM innovations from 5 years ago have been improved upon, with new innovations being developed daily. We see this with the emergence of the internet. The internet, as it continues to evolve, has changed the way organizations and people interact with each other. This can be good or a bad thing. Therefore, during the next 5 to 10 years, the need for STEM will continue to grow as our society becomes more technologically advanced. Businesses will need more STEM employees as well as STEM employees with specific STEM skills. Therefore, there will be a greater push for K through 12 education to focus on ensuring all students are exposed to a STEM education throughout their educational process. Also in the future, with the shortage of STEM employees, there will be more incentives to encourage young people, especially those groups who do not traditionally pursue STEM paths, to do so. Businesses will improve how to engage and mentor female and minority STEM employees, thereby increasing the probability of these employees feeling appreciated and making them more willing to stay with the business long term. This is important since the birth rate in America is declining and there will be less people available to participate in the workforce. Therefore, competition among employees for STEM employees will become fierce.
I'll go next if that's okay. So in terms of how STEM has changed in the last 5 years, I think one of the most important changes that I've seen is that more scientists and people who work in STEM understand that they have a responsibility to speak up about injustice. And society needs the expertise and involvement of people trained in STEM fields. In terms of what I think will happen over the next 10 years, I think an understanding of statistics and how to code and elements of data science will become important tools for everyone. Ethics, policy, and business will work more closely with scientists, and these relationships will be mutually beneficial in making the world better and more free. And one piece of advice that I got when I was younger that I think is timeless is that because as Ganelle mentioned, the rate of knowledge is increasing so much, and yet things are changing constantly as well. What you know is very important, but even more important is that you know how to find a good information, that you can always look up what you need to know, because you might have learned it in the past, or you might not, or it may have changed since the last time you did the research.
Yeah, so I think from the past 5 years, the STEM field in general has experienced some major changes, and even careers in the STEM field, growing daily. And I also think that, over the past 5 years, there has been more collaboration between scientists to work on bigger problems. So I think that's a positive thing. And for the next 5 years, I definitely see the STEM field being more open to people of any work of life, honestly, and especially without really putting into consideration your sexuality. So I think it will grow in that way, be more inclusive, and yeah, basically.
Okay, thank you so much for the answers. And the next questions, it's also a double question, is what are some common misconceptions people have about STEM, and how can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively?
Well, I guess I'll go again. I think one of the most common misconceptions about people in STEM is they're nerds. Also, people in STEM are exceptionally smart. Another misconception is that males are naturally more interested in STEM than females. And as a result of this misconception, there's the belief males do better in STEM-related classes than females. These misconceptions are maintained by the fact women are less visible in STEM fields. We can oppose these misconceptions through organizations such as Women in Bio that educate young women about STEM, mentorship programs, exposing them to STEM fields in school and through after-school programs, also engaging young girls in programs to provide opportunities to experience what people do on the job as a STEM employee. This will increase their interest as well.
Jules, do you want to go now or should I go?
You should go.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I agree with everything that Ganelle said. And I also feel like some of the common myths are that scientists work in isolation and that communication skills are not that important. And sometimes that, to build on what Ganelle said about the nerd stereotype, that STEM folks don't know how to have fun.
Right.
And I disagree with this. I think that we have the best jokes, the corniest jokes, the funniest jokes. So in terms of how I think we can combat these misconceptions, it's that we should stay involved in our communities and practice outreach as we're getting our education and doing our work in STEM. And we should share our love of STEM however we can, whether that's in person, in volunteering at events, in social media, or things like that. And also we can just always have fun talking about STEM with our family and our friends, and the things that we like and the new things that we've learned, and learning from our friends about the science and technology and engineering and math things that they enjoy. Those are ways to combat these misconceptions and show everyone that STEM is fun.
Yeah, and I've definitely heard a lot of those misconceptions. And I think another one is people assume that STEM people have no friends, because I guess the misconception is they're always working. And I think one way to combat that is honestly through education. Is showing that yeah, we do all this stuff, but we're and still we have fun times, and we spend time with friends. And even though we work a lot, we also value other things. We have hobbies. So I think just through education can help really.
So this is like a question that's kind of related to this. So have somebody, so I know you guys mentioned like misconceptions, but have people ever like told you guys those misconceptions, or is it like just something that you guys have heard?
For me personally, being an African-American woman engineer and being an engineer for over 37 years, I have worked in environments that have been all male, and they didn't have to say it. I could just feel the chilliness just in the environment with how I was treated. And also too, when I was a college professor at North Carolina A&T State in the industrial engineering department, as well as in the College of Engineering, I was the only woman. In my department, only African-American female. And in the College of Engineering, I was the only woman, African-American female. So I have been in situations most of my career as being the only woman and the only African-American female. So due to that, I could always just tell that there is a misconception among males, my male colleagues, about what they thought about me as being a woman. But one of the interesting points is when I used to be in faculty meetings, I could bring up a point and nobody would pay attention. Another male faculty member would take the same point and say it in a different way. And then all of a sudden it was wonderful. And I used to ask myself, okay, what's wrong with this picture right here? So yes, a lot of those misconceptions are alive and well. And as was mentioned earlier, we do have to educate people about women in STEM and minorities in STEM?
Well, when my friends, ask me, oh, what classes are you taking this semester? Well, this is something that happened last year. I was like, oh, I'm taking this class in organic chemistry. And they will be like, oh, wow, really? You must be really smart. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'm smart. But it's like, even, sometimes when and I'm the only Black female, honestly, in a science class or math class, or when I'm the only Black female student in an organization, it do sometimes feel like I have to like constantly prove myself, especially like in an environment which is majority white. So yeah, just that feeling of constantly having to prove myself, just because I am not really represented. It's kind of it's kind of bothersome sometimes, but
yeah, to build on that, one of my friends in high school asked me to take differential equations with her because she said that otherwise she was going to be the only girl in the class. And so I did, because I thought it would be a fun challenge and I like spending time with my friend. And then after the first grading period, the teacher of the class said, well, I don't think you're very good at this. And I think that you should think about dropping this class. And boy, that got my mettle up. And I just thought, I'm going to show him, and I'm going to show him that I can do well in this class. And so we had a few grading periods, and by the end, my score increased to where I did not make an A in the class, but I did pass it. I made a B. And in the end, it made my interest in math deep enough that I wound up getting a math degree as one of my Bachelor of Science degrees in undergrad. So it was tough at the time to feel like the person who was supposed to teach me did not think that I belonged there. And yet at the same time, I found out later that when other girls taking his math classes would say that it was too hard, he would tell them about me and say, well, if she can do it, you can do it. So get back to work. So, and he never told me that. A friend of mine who came through a couple classes behind me told me that later. So, so that was gratifying to find out.
Those are all amazing stories. And I think the discussion question that we have is what would be your advice, to a young woman who may be interested in STEM? And like another question that I have is, how might we help girls have more confidence in just STEM abilities? Because I know some girls, they're like good in math, but they don't think that they're good to be in the STEM field. So how can we help? How can we give them more confidence in that?
Okay.
Continue the street.
I'll answer the first question. And my advice is to join organizations whose mission is to educate and mentor young women in STEM. Some of these programs are Fab Farms, Million Women Mentors, 500 Women Scientists, MentorNet, Million Girl Moonshot, and the Society of Women Engineers. And there's more organizations than that. They're out there. Just get on the internet and just research them. Also take advantage of STEM summer programs. Every summer, parks and recreation centers have summer programs in STEM. And also you have a lot of organizations that have robotic programs, and there's just a ton of them out there. So also take classes in STEM related subjects in school. Participate in school and after school STEM programs. A lot of high schools now do have after school STEM programs. Get an opportunity, make sure you participate in them. Explore websites that showcase videos of women on the job working in STEM fields. And I think that is one of the big hindrances in STEM, is that a lot of young females don't see women working actually in the field of STEM. There are plenty of videos that are on the internet that showcase this. Some examples of these are If/Then Collection, Earth Echo, STEM Explorer, Women at Energy, and Women at NASA.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I'll say reach out or even network, even if it's with your teacher or with somebody you met during the summer program, because you really don't know like your experience, like you really don't know where what they can truly teach you. Some of our teacher, yeah, sure, they teach us, they went to school, but they might have other connections that might help you further explore your interest in STEM. So I would definitely say reach out, try networking, because you really never know who you really just never know. But yeah.
Well, and to build on what Jules is saying about networking, if you're watching this and you know about LinkedIn, you're welcome to find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions and would like any advice about pursuing a career in STEM. But in general, well, and Ganelle shared a lot of wonderful websites and resources and places to go on the internet. There's also a lot of coding groups that are geared towards women and girls. So those would be good to look out for. But in general, I would say to follow your interests. Try out different things, because especially when you're young, that's the time to try lots of different things, as many things as you can, because that's where you'll figure out what you like and what you don't like so much. And become best friends with the library because it has all the wonderful things that you need. And if there's a chance to get involved in citizen science in your community, that will also be ways to, you can collect data about all different kinds of projects such as water monitoring for creeks and rivers in your neighborhood, or listening for frogs and toads, or watching birds, or things like that. And also, I would suggest reading the newspaper when you can, because there's lots of science and technology news in the newspaper nearly every day. And that's a good way to build your awareness of what's important to you and what's going on in the world. I would say try out different clubs at school. And if there's not one that matches your interests, then get together with your friends and start your own. And then another thing that we haven't talked about yet today is that mistakes are learning opportunities. And there's a lot of trial and error in STEM. And you won't always learn everything perfect the first time, but just keep trying. Always keep trying, because that's what's gonna help you get ahead in STEM. And then finally, have faith in yourself and do what you enjoy. Rely on people who support you and ignore people who don't.
Yeah. So I think this is like one last question that I have, because I know Valerie mentioned about mistakes. So I want to ask, what mistake did each of you guys make, and what did you learn from it?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if Dr. Ganelle wants to go first.
No, guess what? I'll let someone else go.
But for me personally, I would say just choosing my classes and just being smart. Like I know, like in college you want to take science, a lot of science classes at the same time. What is to prove yourself, or what is just to go further or like be more advanced than your peers. But I've learned that the more, like, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but you have to learn how to sometimes take a step back to take a step forward. And I've learned that through taking so many science classes at the same time and not doing as well as I could have if I had just taken my time and actually focusing on learning the material more in depth. And so that's something I definitely failed to do, especially my first semester of college. where I should have just, taking maybe one science class and take other classes just to, introduce me to the rigorousness of college. But I didn't really do that, and it did really affect my mental health. My GPA did suffer. And, I kind of thought about giving up on being a pre-med. But, I've learned that true, I did terrible, that I don't want to let those few bad grades, trace my future. So I've learned from that, and, I'm trying to be more smart, with, just choosing my classes, or maybe even learning in the class. And another mistake I did in the past was, science classes are hard in college. They're really hard. And I've learned how not to take those failures personally. I used to think, because I didn't do so well in this class, or because I didn't get an A, was because I wasn't smart enough. But sometimes it's just because you need to change your study methods, or you need to change the ways you take the exam, and you need to change a few stuff. It doesn't really have to relate to you as a person. So that's just a few things that I've learned, a few mistakes that I did, and and that I've learned, and that definitely keep putting into practice in the future.
That's all great advice, Jules. So, and actually, I think
I'll go next. Valerie, I was hoping you go next.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, Jules, I was gonna say a lot of what you were gonna say, actually. That in my enthusiasm, there were several times that I bit off a little bit more than I could chew, and apologize for the sirens in the background. And so I would agree with you that do pace yourself and don't take on too much at once. There's several reasons for this. One of which is whatever you're interested in when you're in college, try to volunteer in a lab, or work with a mathematician. If math is your thing, you want to give yourself time to do that, and not only be studying for your classes. Because when you get to volunteer to help in some area of STEM, then you get some real practical experience in the fields that you're interested in. And what was the other thing? Gosh, I guess if I remember it, I'll add it after you, Ganelle.
Okay, then. I guess for me, the one mistake that I made was by working in environments, mostly with males, I was less assertive. And I realized I missed out on a lot of opportunities just because I didn't speak up, and I held my opinion to myself, and I just wasn't as proactive as I could be. And it could be too that I was intimidated. It was hard. I was young, and just being in environments that I was just surrounded by males all over the place, and not having the kind of support system that I would have liked to have had, especially being in jobs for the first time. And that just caused me to shrink as a person. And so I'm encouraging you to not put yourself in those situations. And I think one of the biggest things is that people, especially men, naturally think women who speak up are aggressive. And that's a negative label that has been bestowed upon us. Whereas you can be assertive without being aggressive. You just have to learn how to be that way, and just not let others intimidate you to the point where you just lose yourself and just not be able to express your knowledge and who you are.
That's such great advice. And I remembered now what I forgot I was going to say. And that is, again, to build on what Jules was saying about the challenges, the classes do get harder in college and university. And so my best piece of advice there is to start working on your assignments right after you get them. Because one thing that I had found growing up was that usually I could start the day before or a couple days before and get away with finishing in time. That does not happen at university. particularly with like math homework or science lab write-ups or preparations or things like that. And even essays. If you want your essay to be good, you're gonna have to rewrite it. You're gonna have to edit it. It's never gonna come out perfect the first time. So, and it also becomes a lot more manageable if you can just chip away at it, start sketching things out, make your plan as soon as you get the assignment, then that will really help you be able to manage your time better and complete your challenging assignments in plenty of time so that you can still enjoy them and not be super stressed because you're always waiting till the last minute.
All-nighters.
So don't make that mistake.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for like just giving advice. It's just amazing. I feel like I'm gonna leave out of here with like so many things to do now and not procrastinate on an assignment. So like that's really amazing. And so Aubrey, do you want to like end the presentation or?
Well, I just also want to say thank you so much, everyone. This was great to listen to. I really appreciated learning all about kind of your journeys and the advice you had. I know Valerie said to reach out on LinkedIn, and I couldn't recommend that more to get, find your mentors, whoever they may be. Yeah, so thank you again so much. We also wanted to thank our Young Women in Bio national sponsors. So you can see those there, and we really appreciate everything, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to talk to you.
It was wonderful, you guys.
Likewise.